The sun rises slowly over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the rooftops of Carthage. The city, still wrapped in the stillness of early morning, begins to breathe again. Light filters softly through narrow windows, landing gently on the cool stone floors of quiet homes. In the distance, the harbor stirs. The Katha in Carthage's great circular port glistens as sunlight touches its calm waters. Ships remain still, resting in their berths like creatures of the deep held in gentle sleep. Traders move quietly among them, checking ropes, inspecting jars, preparing for a day that will unfold slowly, deliberately like the turning of a scroll. In the city's courtyards, women sweep dry leaves into neat piles. Their hands are steady, their movements quiet, purposeful. Children rise slowly from mats laid on cool floors, rubbing their eyes, listening to the sounds of birds cooing under eaves. The scent of salt air drifts in from the sea, mingling with the smell of fresh bread, dried herbs, and wood smoke. Carthage wakes not with urgency, but with rhythm. There is no rush here. Only a sense of order and calm that settles into every street, every doorway, every palm tree that sways gently in the breeze. In narrow alleys, the soft tap of sandals on stone echoes between the walls. A merchant greets a neighbor with a nod. Servant returns from the well, balancing a jug of water on her shoulder. A young boy walks past with a bundle of kindling under one arm and a dog trailing behind. He hums a quiet tune as he moves through the morning light. In the heart of the city, the market comes to life. Baskets of olives, figs, and fragrant spices are laid out with care. Pottery glints in the sun, and woven cloths in soft desert colors ripple gently in the breeze. The language here is soft. People speak with small smiles and quiet voices. Deal is made with a glance. Thank you is spoken with a hand over the heart. Life in Carthage moves not with noise but with purpose. In a shaded workshop, a potter molds clay with strong, steady hands. Next door, a weaver threads dyed wool through a loom, creating a shawl with a pattern shaped like flowing water. Behind a column, a scribe dips his reed into ink and writes carefully on a scroll, the soft scratch of his pen barely louder than the breeze. Farther out, beyond the city walls, fields stretch toward the hills. Farmers tend to olive trees and grapevines. Terraces climb the slopes like steps cut into the land. A young girl kneels beside a stream, pouring water at the roots of a fig tree. A shepherd guides his flock along a dusty path, his staff tapping the ground as he walks. The sun rises higher, casting soft shadows across the city. Inside a cool stone house, a family gathers for a midday meal. The table is low, the food simple lentils, olives, warm bread, and a stew scented with garlic and cumin. A cat sleeps in the shade near the doorway. From a small shrine in the corner, the smell of incense rises slowly. Tanit is thanked for another peaceful morning. Balhammon is remembered with quiet reverence. Religion here is not loud, it is woven into everything, from the way food is shared to the way prayers are whispered under breath. The city holds its traditions like a stone holds warmth. As the midday sun settles over Carthage, the pace softens. The market quiets. The fields rest. Children nap under shaded awnings, and all around the city seems to pause, not to stop, but to breathe, to hold the moment in stillness before the afternoon arrives. Carthage is not a city of sudden movements or harsh sounds. It is a place of flow and memory. A place where the day unfolds like a quiet song, where the people live not apart from the land or the sea, but as part of it. This is how morning lives in Carthage, with light, with silence, with purpose, and with peace. As the heat of the sun deepens, and the sky turns from soft gold to a pale glowing blue, Carthage begins to settle into the rhythm of midday. The streets grow quieter. The stone walls, warmed by the morning light, radiate a gentle heat that wraps around the city like a slow breath. In the market, merchants sit back on low stools, sipping cool water from clay cups, their goods neatly arranged and catching the light. Rows of dried herbs, dark purple olives glistening in oil baskets of figs and almonds, bolts of dyed fabric folded with care. The calls of sellers soften now. There is no need to shout. Those who want to buy have already done so, and the rest of the day can pass in ease. A slow breeze moves through the palm-lined courtyard, stirring the corners of linen awnings and carrying the scent of myrrh, cinnamon, and roasted wheat through the city. In quiet corners, artisans continue their work in silence. A bronze smith gently taps a chisel against a small sculpture, sparks glinting for a moment before vanishing in the warm light. In the shade of a wide archway, a group of women sit together, sewing and speaking softly. Their needles moving through fabric with the same calm rhythm as their voices. They speak of the ripening of dates, the price of salt, the dream one of them had the night before. Long road with no end, and a bird that whispered her name. Their laughter is soft, as if carried by the stones themselves. Further out, past the walls, the fields shimmer under the midday sun. Terraced vineyards stretch across the hills, and clusters of date palms cast short, dark shadows on the dry ground. A group of farmers rest beneath an olive tree, their baskets half filled with fruit, their hands dusty and strong. One of them takes a reed flute from a cloth bag and plays a few notes, slow and uneven at first, then steady and smooth. The music drifts across the fields like a thread through water. Not loud enough to interrupt the silence, but just enough to remind it that people are still here, breathing, working, dreaming. Back inside the city, the temples remain cool and still. Stone columns cast long stripes of shadow on the floors, and the air inside smells of cedar, beeswax, and quiet. In the temple of Taned, a priestess lights a small bowl of incense and walks in slow circles, her footsteps muffled by smooth stone. Her hands move with practiced grace, raising the smoke in offering to the sky, her voice no louder than a breath. Carthaginians do not pray with shouts. Their worship is woven into stillness, built into the architecture of life, folded into food, and water in the act of watching the sun move across a wall. Near the northern gate, where the road turns toward the hills, an older man sits on a bench, his back against a warm wall, his eyes half closed. In his lap lies an open scroll, though he no longer reads it. He listens to the wind instead, and the distant clang of a hammer from the shipyard, and the soft voices of two children playing with a wooden hoop. Every so often he smiles, not at anything in particular, just at the shape of the moment. The way it feels to be still and part of something larger. Above him, swallows dart between eaves, their wings cutting through the air with small bursts of motion, like stitches being sewn into the sky. In another part of the city, a teacher ends his lesson beneath a shaded pergola. His students close their wax tablets and roll their scrolls, their sandals tapping softly as they leave in small groups. Some still discussing the story of Queen Dido, some already thinking of food or rest or the sea. The teacher remains behind for a while, wiping the dust from his bench, placing the chalk back into its bowl, then simply sitting with his hands on his knees, watching the play of light between the wooden beams above. And all around him, the city hums not with sound, but with presence, with life. Even the silence in Carthage is alive. As the sun begins to lower ever so slightly, shadows lengthen just a little, and the streets grow even more hushed. This is not a time for work or speech. This is the time between the space carved gently into the day for thought, for quiet, for feeling the weight of the world lessen just enough to notice your own breath. Doors remain open. Water is poured over feet and foreheads. Bread is broken and shared in shaded corners. And the city leans back just slightly into its own memory, its own rhythm, knowing that evening will come as it always has, and with it the return of light softened by dusk, of laughter rising slowly like lanterns lit one by one, and of stars turning to their ancient place above the rooftops of a city built on salt, on stone, on silence, and on time. The light over Carthage begins to shift once more. The golden haze of the afternoon settles into a deeper warmth, casting long shadows from temple columns and palm trees onto the stone streets. The air grows heavier but not harsh, just slower, as if the entire city is inhaling. The market begins to thin. Merchants lean against the walls behind their stalls, speaking lazily to one another, their voices low and relaxed. Some share handfuls of dates, their skins soft and sticky with sweetness. Others tie close the necks of their storage jars, or fold linen over the goods that will not be sold today. Nothing here is wasted, not time, not food, not movement. A boy walks through the square carrying a clay pitcher, careful not to spill. He delivers it to an older man seated on a bench shaded by a tree. They exchange no words. A glance is enough. The boy turns and walks away, and the man sips the cool water, eyes closed. His thoughts somewhere between the breeze and the distant calls of seagulls drifting in from the harbor. Along the outer edge of the city, the shipyards begin to stir again. Workers return from their brief rest, wiping sweat from their faces, tightening ropes, and lifting planks of timber onto ramps. The sound of hammering returns, not fast, not loud, but steady, like a heartbeat echoing softly across the water. Seabirds circle above, gliding on invisible currents. Below, the sea remains calm, its surface reflecting the slow dance of clouds that drift lazily through the sky. Inside the Carthage, the inner harbor remains quiet. Warships remain tucked away in their private docks, guarded by silence and shadow. The Admiral's tower watches all, as it always does, and even though no orders are given today, its presence is felt like a thought waiting to be spoken. Elsewhere, in the scholarly quarter near the center of the city, students gather in shaded arcades to discuss the movements of stars and the structure of trade routes. Scrolls are passed between hands, and clay tablets are laid flat on benches, covered in lines of text written in the soft flowing script of the Punic tongue. A teacher stands near a diagram carved into a slab of polished stone, pointing to the lines with a reed as he speaks of tides and winds and the ways in which the moon touches the world more than we understand. The students listen, some with narrowed eyes, others gazing past him at the branches swaying above, letting the words wash over them like waves. They are not in a hurry. Knowledge is not a race here. It is a garden tended slowly, one leaf at a time. In a private garden behind a merchant's house, a woman walks barefoot on the stone path winding between olive trees and tall grasses. She holds a small bundle of herbs in one hand, rosemary, thyme, and Mintan brushes her fingers along the leaves of a fig tree as she passes. A fountain murmurs nearby, its water spilling gently from the mouth of a carved lion into a shallow pool lined with smooth stones. A pair of doves drink from the edge, their wings fluttering once, then settling. The woman kneels to set the herbs beside a small clay statue at the base of the tree. She touches her forehead with 2 fingers, closes her eyes, and whispers a name. Perhaps a prayer, perhaps a memory. In this city, there is often no difference between the two. As the sun dips lower, the smell of evening fires begins to drift through the alleys. Meals are being prepared, bowls of lentils spiced with coriander. Platters of roasted vegetables, fresh bread torn and dipped into oil pressed just days ago. Children return from the outskirts, their sandals dusty, their cheeks warm, carry sticks, feathers, stones, things they found or imagined. They speak all at once, voices high and full of energy, while their mothers wash their faces, and fathers nod quietly from doorways, their arms crossed and their smiles hidden in their beards. In one corner of the city, a group of musicians gathers near a low wall where the street opens to the sea. They tune their instruments, reed flutes, small drums. The soft plucking of strings and begin to play as the sky shifts from amber to rose. The music rises gently, blending with the sound of waves and the faint ringing of bells from the temple district. Some people stop to listen. Others continue walking, letting the music follow them like a shadow. The city does not pause for beauty, it includes it. The notes wind through the air, turning corners, lifting above the rooftops. I am slipping between shutters into homes where lamps are being lit and mats are being laid for the evening rest. In a home near the southern wall, a grandfather tells a story to his granddaughter. She lies beside him, her head on his shoulder, eyes wide. The tale is of a ship that sailed too far and found an island where time moved backward. He tells it slowly, letting the words settle between them like falling dust. She does not interrupt. She only listens, mouth slightly open, one hand gripping the edge of her blanket. When the story ends, she says nothing, only shifts closer and falls asleep, with her hand resting on his chest. Outside, the last light of the day begins to fade. The stars return, one by one, to their places above the city. The moon hangs low over the water, and the air cools. Fires burn lower, the voices grow softer. Carthage once again begins to fold inward, not closing, not stopping, just resting, preparing to dream. And in every corner of the city, from the Carthage to the hilltop terraces, the rhythm of life becomes stillness once more, steady and full, like the sea at night. Night takes full hold over Carthage, but it does not arrive all at once. It seeps gently into the corners of the city, softening the lines of buildings, dimming the edges of streets, and folding the sky into deep shades of blue and violet. Lamps flicker to life one by one behind lattice windows. Smoke from cooking fires rises into the still air, carrying with it the earthy scent of roasted grains, charred onions, and warm oil. From the highest terraces, the rooftops of Carthage now glow with candlelight like a map made of stars. The moon climbs slowly above the sea, casting silver over the harbor. In the Carthage, ships rock gently in their berths, their ropes creaking softly against the docks. The water glimmers like polished stone, disturbed only by the occasional ripple of a fish breaking the surface, or the wing beat of a bird gliding low in search of rest. Nearby, sailors finish tying down the last of the cargo. They move quietly, exchanging few words. Their day is done, but the weight of the sea never truly leaves their shoulders. Some sit along the dock and share a final cup of wine, their legs dangling over the edge, watching the moonlight dance across the water. In the heart of the city, evening prayers begin. At the temple of Balhaman, the high priest raises a bowl of fire toward the night sky. Around him, other priests chant in slow cadence, their voices rising and falling like the breath of the wind itself. The flames flicker in answer, casting long shadows against the walls of the sacred chamber. At the temple of Tanit, women gather in silence, their robes dark, their faces calm. They bring offerings of flowers, bread, and herbs, placing them gently before the altar. No grand rituals are performed, only quiet devotion, a stillness that feels more powerful than song. The gods of Carthage are not distant or cold. They are ever present, stitched into every stone, every breeze, every whispered word spoken between people in the quiet moments of the night. Beyond the temples, the streets empty further. Guards walk the perimeter walls, not with urgency, but with steady purpose. Their footsteps echo lightly on stone as they pass torches mounted in iron brackets. The flamelight dances across their bronze helmets and leather cloaks. They stop to speak with one another in low voices, glance toward the hills, and then continue on, watching not for war, but for the peace they are entrusted to keep. In a home near the city's edge, a woman finishes brushing her daughter's hair. The girl sits quietly, her eyes half closed. She hums a lullaby, soft and low, as the mother braids her hair back in long strands. The windows are open. The night breeze slips in, bringing with it the scent of wild thyme and dust, and the faintest touch of the sea. The child asks why stars do not fall. The mother answers, because they know we need them to stay right where they are. The child nods once and says nothing more. In a courtyard garden, an old scholar reads by the light of a clay lantern. The scroll on his lap is worn and faded. It is not new knowledge he seeks, but something remembered something from a line he read long ago and forgot until tonight. His lips move as he rereads it, slowly, as if tasting each word for the first time. Behind him, the garden is silent. The pool reflects the stars, and frogs call softly from its edge. He does not look up. He does not need to. He has seen this night before. In the quarter of the artisans, a potter washes his hands in a basin, the water turning cloudy with clay. He places his tools aside and covers his wheel with linen. In the workshop next to his, a young apprentice sweeps the floor. She works slowly, her body tired, but her eyes full of something new, a spark. A memory of the first time she shaped a bowl that did not crack in the fire. She finishes her task and steps outside, barefoot, into the cooling night. She looks up at the moon, then down at her hands, and smiles. Elsewhere, in a tavern built of thick stone and shaded by a wide awning, a group of friends sits together over a shared dish of lentils and grilled fish. The wine has loosened their words, but not their dignity. They speak of ships, of politics, of strange birds seen near the water. One of them, a man with a soft voice and gray in his beard, tells a story of a dream he once had, a city beneath the sea, glowing with green light where people move through water like it was air. The others laugh gently, not to mock him, but to wrap his words in warmth. They listen, and when the story ends, they drink to it. Not because they believe it, but because it was beautiful. Farther up the hill, where the air is cooler and the wind touches the city more directly, the olive trees shift quietly. The leaves shimmer in the moonlight, and the shadows stretch long across the paths. A pair of foxes cross one of them, quick and silent, their shapes barely visible before vanishing between stone walls. In the homes nearby, families settle in for the night. Oil lamps are lowered, mats are unrolled, and doors are latched with care. The city does not lock itself and fire it, simply closes like a flower at dusk, knowing it will open again when the time is right. In a room lit only by moonlight, a man sits on a wooden stool, carving a small figure from ivory. His hands move with care, every detail cut with patience. He is making a gift, though the person it is meant for is not near. Still, he carves as if she were standing beside him. When he finishes, he wraps it in cloth, places it in a box, and closes it gently. He does not write a name. He does not need to. Above him, the sky grows darker still. The stars now shine clearly, scattered in ancient patterns known to every sailor, every priest, every shepherd on the plains. The people of Carthage have given them names, woven them into their stories, trusted them to guide ships, to mark seasons, to remind the living that there is always something greater above. And now, beneath this silent sky, the city finally exhales. Its rhythm slows. The sea breathes in return. The wind becomes softer, and in that stillness, in that perfect calm, Carthage sleeps. Not alone, not forgotten, but whole, watched by stars, held by time. Beyond the walls of the city, the land lies in silence. Rolling fields that were once filled with movement and labor now rest beneath a silver sky. The terraces carved into the hills sleep under the same moonlight that brushes the rooftops of Carthage. Olive trees, unmoving in the still air, stand like sentinels in the night. Their trunks are twisted with age, their roots sunk deep into the soil that has fed generations. The wind no longer moves them. It only passes through, quiet and unseen. Farther along the paths, at the edge of the cultivated world, the wilderness begins again. Low shrubs, dry grasses, and distant forests sleep in their own rhythm, untouched by walls or ritual. Somewhere in the distance, a jackal calls once, then stops. It is not a threat, only a voice added to the chorus of night. A shepherd lies beside his flock on a bed of woven reeds, staring at the sky. His animals sleep nearby, breathing slowly, their bodies warm against one another. He listens not for danger, but for comfort. The sound of insects, the whisper of branches, the steady beat of his own heart under the stars. He does not speak. He does not need to. This silence has spoken to him since he was a child. Within the walls, the city folds further into stillness. The last lamps are extinguished. The last voices are hushed. Doors are closed, curtains drawn. But the city does not vanish. It transforms. Its presence becomes softer, deeper, more inward. In homes where children sleep, mothers check them once more. They lift a corner of a blanket, adjust a pillow, press a hand lightly against a small back rising and falling with sleep. In the quietest of gestures, love speaks its final word for the day. A father steps outside for a last breath of night air. He looks up at the stars, his thoughts wandering far perhaps to a brother on a voyage, or to a memory of his own youth, when he stood in this same doorway, holding his son for the first time. Now the air is cool, the sky endless. In the moment both heavy and light, he stays only a minute, then returns inside. Down in the lower district, near the warehouses and the grain stores, the harbor is almost completely still. The tide pulls gently at the stone banks, and ropes creak softly with each breath of the sea. A night watchman walks his route, lantern in hand. He pauses now and then, not to inspect, but to listen. A bird calls. A shutter clicks. A rat scurries across a beam. All of these things he knows by sound alone. This city is not strange to him. It's familiar, almost like a living thing. It breathes beside him. It holds him. And in the comfort of that quiet knowing, he continues his path. In the upper district where the wealthy families sleep behind carved gates and shaded gardens, the silence is velvet soft. Decorative pools reflect the moon, and flowering trees cast still shadows against marble walls. Statues stand in alcoves, holding eternal poses under the stars gods and heroes captured in stone. Their faces are calm, their eyes unblinking, and in the hush of midnight they almost seem to breathe. In a corner room of one such house, a young woman sits awake, legs crossed beneath her, writing on a strip of parchment by the light of a flickering lamp. Her hair is loose around her shoulders, her face still and thoughtful. She dips her pen in ink and records the events of the day's simple things. The smell of bread in the market, the laughter of two girls chasing pigeons, the way the sunlight fell through the fabric of her mother's robe. She writes not because she must, but because she cannot help it. She has done this every night for years. It is how she holds the world still, how she gathers it in her hands and makes it her own. When she finishes, she blows gently across the ink, rolls the scroll, ties it with string, and places it in a wooden box beside her bed. Then, at last, she lies down and closes her eyes. Across the city, in an entirely different life, a fisherman dreams. His body lies sprawled on a straw mat, arms open, mouth slightly parted. He does not dream of ships or nets or salt. He dreams of running across dry hills with no weight on his shoulders, of rain falling on his face, of a voice calling his name from behind a wall of reeds. It is not a story. It is not something he understands. But he wakes smiling just before dawn and remembers only the feeling of it. In the barracks, soldiers sleep in rows, each with their armor stored neatly beside them. There is no fear here tonight. There's no watch to stand, no threats across the water. The city is still, and even those trained to be alert find themselves resting deeper than usual. One man sleeps with his hands folded under his head, dreaming of a feast that never ends. Another mutters a name under his breath, someone long gone or perhaps not yet known. None of them stir. Even the dogs that guard the entrance lie curled against the stone, their ears twitching only when a night breeze brushes past. The wind rises now, ever so slightly, turning the edge of the night toward morning. It moves across rooftops, down alleys, over water. It lifts curtains and plays in the corners of courtyards. It carries with it the faint scent of the fields, the salt of the sea, the smoke of burned cedar. It is the first sign that something is shifting, that a new day waits just beyond the horizon. In the temple of Eshmun, god of healing, a candle still burns. A priest, too old to sleep through the night, sits beside it. He does not pray aloud, he does not read. He only sits, his hands folded, his mind moving like water through memory. He thinks of the sick he has touched, the wounded he has washed, the broken he could not help, and he breathes slowly, deeply, not as a ritual, but as a man who has seen much and still chooses to stay. The candle flickers. The oil runs low, but the flame holds steady. And outside the temple, the city holds its silence for a few more precious moments before the light returns. The final hour of night lays softly over Carthage like a closing eyelid. The darkness is no longer deep, but translucent, silvered at the edges by the promise of light waiting quietly beyond the sea. Still, the city remains in stillness. No one hurries. No door opens just yet. The stars hold their places above the rooftops, their reflections flickering in the shallow pools and polished windows. The moon begins its descent, slow and solemn, retreating behind the low hills to the west, as if giving space for the sun to return. Along the rooftops, the last of the night wind moves in slow spirals, stirring fabric left on lines, lifting the soft petals of sleeping flowers, and whispering through wind chimes that clink faintly like distant bells. In the inner courtyard of a school, a lone teacher has risen early, well before his pupils. He sits cross-legged beside the fig tree at the center of the square, the scroll he brought unopened beside him. Instead of studying, he watches the faint transition of the sky, the pale ribbon of morning unfurling low behind the temple towers. A single bird calls once, then again breaking the long silence of night with a tone that is not loud but certain. The teacher smiles gently. He remembers this sound from his childhood. It is not the call of a clock, but the sign of return, the natural rhythm of life. He leans forward to touch the cool stone floor, the surface still moist with dew, and closes his eyes for a brief moment of stillness before duty begins. Near the harbor, a fisherman wakes just as the horizon begins to blush. He steps out of his small home into the gentle pre-dawn light, tying the sash of his tunic and rubbing his hands together to chase off the last of the night's chill. His boat waits where he left it, tethered quietly among many others, each one a body shaped for the sea. He carries no words in his mouth this early, only breath and memory. He checks his nets, knots the ropes again, steps into the boat with the ease of a man who has done so 1,000 times before. The sea welcomes him, rocking lightly, already shifting beneath the sky that prepares to glow. The oar dips, pulls, dips again, and soon he vanishes between the breakwaters, moving as silently as a thought. In the sacred quarter, the first priestesses light the dawn incense. Thin coils of smoke rise from stone bowls placed at the eastern edge of the temple roof. The smoke dances in the first breeze of day, climbing in spirals toward the awakening sky. It carries with it the scent of crushed juniper, dried myrtle, and honeyed fig. They do not sing, they do not chant. This offering is wordless, a simple act of greeting. Their hands move slowly as they scatter flower petals along the threshold, marking a new beginning not with sound, but with gesture. Light begins to touch the tops of the walls now. The outlines of the Carthage become clearer. Ships and rigging once shadowed, now drawn again in gold. The sails, hung to dry, begin to flutter gently, and the ropes shiver with movement. Birds return to perch along the mastheads and ledges, their wings tucked close, their heads turning to the rising light. Across the city, animals begin to stir. The goats in pens near the outer fields bleat softly, shaking their heads, already searching for food. A dog stretches on its front paws, back arched, tongue out, then trots toward the bakery door where he knows the first loaf will be thrown to him as it always is. Even the cats rouse from their coiled sleep on rooftops and warm tiles, leaping silently from perch to perch, resuming their quiet patrol of the streets. Within the homes of Carthage, people begin to wake not suddenly, not loudly, but like petals opening one by one. A mother rises first, tying her hair behind her head and stepping into the courtyard to draw water. A father adjusts his robe, walks to the door, and lifts the wooden bolt with care. A boy stirs beneath his blanket, not quite ready, clinging to the last warmth of dreams. A girl ties the cord of her sandal while yawning, blinking at the brightness beginning to touch the floor. These are the rituals of mourning, small, familiar, repeated. They do not rush. There is no bell that forces them. The city wakes not by demand, but by design. In a bakery near the Forum, the oven is already glowing. The baker brushes its inner wall with a wet cloth, sprinkles flour on a long board, and begins to shape dough with steady, practiced hands. The scent of yeast and ash begins to move into the air. By the time the first few loaves are lined in baskets, footsteps echo in the street. A man with a scroll under his arm pauses to buy one. A girl carrying herbs for her mother smiles as she takes another. The coins are exchanged without words. The warmth of the bread in hand is enough. The Forum begins to stir. The market stalls are opened again, lids removed from clay jars, cloths lifted from displays of nuts, figs, oil, and dyes. The voices here are still quiet, but no longer whispered. Greetings are shared, names are spoken. Children run past with bundles in their arms. An old man sits on a stool with a board across his knees, arranging tiny objects for trade shells, beads, tokens. Life begins again in full, not with celebration, not with spectacle, but with trust, with breath, with presence. Above the Forum on the high hill of Burza, the temple columns catch the full light of the sun. The city below is no longer asleep. Its shadows retreat, its rooftops shine, its people walk and speak and laugh and carry the new day in their hands like something they have never held before. In the alleyways, brooms sweep dust into corners. The wells, water splashes into pots. At the gates, guards open the city to the roads beyond, nodding to travelers, lifting the wooden bars with practiced ease. All of Carthage is alive again, not as something returning, but as something continuing. It has not stopped, has only rested. And now, with the sun climbing higher and the bells beginning to ring from the distant temple towers, the silence of night is fully gone, replaced not with noise, but with life. And through it all, the memory of the stillness remains, held in stone. In wind, in breath, the city remembers how to rest, and so it knows how to begin. This is Carthage, breathing, living, awake once more. The morning in Carthage unfolds like silk unrolling across stone. The city, now fully awake, does not explode into movement. It stretches, it eases, it hums. Each district has its own rhythm. In the merchant quarter, voices grow louder, but not sharp. Laughter floats between awnings. The smell of warm bread mixes with the crispness of fruit just cut open. A trader arranges his baskets of pomegranates so their colors catch the light. Nearby, a woman sells dyed wool in shades of ochre, sea green, and soft crimson. She knows each color by touch, not name, and places them as carefully as if she were composing a prayer. A child tugs at her robe. She bends down. He offers her a rock shaped like a heart. She does not scold him. She smiles and ties it into the end of her sash. In the side streets that snake upward toward the temples, the sun paints shadows in long, diagonal patterns. These streets are quieter, lined with homes whose doors open to small gardens and shaded archways. The sound of a flute drifts down from a balcony where a boy practices alone, repeating the same few notes again and again until they land smooth and full, like water falling into a bowl. Below him, his grandfather waters the plants in clay pots, wiping the sweat from his brow with the edge of his tunic. He does not complain about the heat. He speaks to the basil in low tones, asks the mint if it slept well, and gently pats the soil around the roots. In Carthage, even the smallest acts carry memory. Every corner touched by the hand remembers. Every step on worn stone becomes part of the city's long, soft pulse. In the shipyard district, the tempo is different. Wood echoes underfoot. Iron tools clink. Voices call between scaffolds and beams. A new merchant vessel is being finished, its hull polished with oil, its mast carved with a symbol of protection. One of the shipwrights traces it with his thumb, not for show, but because his father did the same. They say it brings the ship home, no matter how far it sails. Young boys carry buckets, pass ropes, watch the older men closely. They do not speak unless spoken to, but they see everything. They are not just learning the craft, they are learning the city. The Carthage, bright now in the full sun, ripples with motion. Small boats enter and leave, some loaded with grain, others with salt, some with amphorae filled with fish packed in brine. The sea is calmer than usual, and the tide moves gently against the curve of the inner wall. Sailors lean over the edges of their boats to speak with friends on the dock, laughing and trading news about where the wind has taken them. No one shouts. Voices here rise only when lifted by joy. Even the gulls seem to glide quieter than they do in other ports. Farther inland, near the public baths, a line of people waits patiently. Some talk in pairs, others watch the steam rising from the vents, already imagining the feeling of warm water and smooth stone beneath their hands. The bath attendants prepare large towels, oil jars, and scented herbs, lavender, pine, and crushed citrus leaves. The baths in Carthage are not simply places to clean the body. They're places to return to oneself, to soak away the noise, to think slowly, to be human, not for others, but for one's own peace. A poet sits outside the gate with a wax tablet balanced on his knees, sketching the beginnings of a verse. He does not write with flair. His lines are short, thoughtful. He listens more than he speaks, watching how the morning touches each face, how shadows move across skin, how people sigh when they step into the warmth of the bathhouse. He does not write for fame. He writes because it helps him remember the feeling of moments before they pass. Above the city, Byrsa Hill begins to fill with people. Some climb its winding steps with baskets of offerings, fruit, oil, folded cloth. Others carry nothing but their own quiet reverence. At the summit, the great temple grounds are open to the sun, their columns glowing white against the sky. Priests and priestesses walk slowly, their steps light, their robes trailing behind them in perfect stillness. They light fresh incense at the altars. They pour libations into stone basins carved centuries ago. Here, the gods are not only worshipped, they are witnessed in the simplicity of ritual, in the care of every gesture. One priest closes his eyes as he pours wine at the foot of a statue. His lips do not move. The prayer is not in words, but in presence. In that moment, he becomes part of the city's heartbeat, not separate, not above. Just another note in the song. Midday approaches. The shadows shrink beneath the trees. The city slows again, not in weariness, but in wisdom. People retreat indoors, seeking shade behind woven curtains and thick walls. Meals are taken in silence: bread, olives, lentils, and cool water. Conversations become whispers.
Oh.
Doors are left open for the breeze. In one home, a woman kneads dough with soft hands, while her mother hums an old song in the next room. The flour rises in light clouds, and the table is dusted white. A baby sleeps nearby, one hand curled around nothing, breathing deeply. In another home, two brothers sit on the floor playing a game with pebbles and a carved board. They do not argue. They do not speak much. Their eyes stay on the game, and their laughter, when it comes, is quiet and full. Outside, the olive trees stand still. The wind rests. Oh, the sky opens wide and full above the city, glowing not with noise or demand, but with clarity. Carthage, in this hour, is not hurrying. It is not climbing. It is not falling. It is being. It is remembering what it means to exist without rush, without noise, with purpose woven gently into every breath. The bells will ring later. The streets will fill again. For now, the city listens to itself. And in this quiet, in this sunlight, in this shared stillness, Carthage continues to be eternal, not by stone or power or name, but by rhythm, by grace, by the way it never forgets how to pause. As the day begins to tilt gently toward afternoon, the city of Carthage awakens from its midday stillness, not with suddenness, but with quiet movement, like the tide returning to the shore. One by one, doorways fill again, with the shadows of people stepping back into the light. The streets do not rush. Breathe. The sound of footsteps returns softly over the stone paths, and with it, the hum of life resumes its steady rhythm. In the shaded stalls of the lower forum, merchants refill the bowls and baskets they had covered hours ago. The figs are darker now, the sun warming their skins. Clay jars are uncapped again. Pieces of jewelry are set out under fine cloth. Coins exchange hands without tension. Eyes meet and glance away with practiced ease. Carthaginians know how to move slowly, how to work without noise. Here, effort is not tied to display. It is held in the small repetitions of hands that have done the same task for years, hands that fold linen, weigh grain, trace symbols into wax, slice olives for trade. Nearby, a woman walks through the market alone, a small basket at her side, her head uncovered. Her steps are calm. She greets a man selling salt with a soft word, then selects 3 eggs from a low tray of straw, brushing off the dust before placing them into her cloth. She pauses once, turning toward the sound of a child's laughter in the distance. Her eyes soften, though her face remains still. She continues walking, stopping once more to pick up a blue stone from the ground, warm from the sun, and slips it quietly into her pocket. On the outer steps of a workshop, a father and son repair a broken wheel. The father's hands are broad and worn. He does not speak much, but when he does, his words are few and kind. The son watches closely, not only with his eyes, but with his whole body, echoing each motion, memorizing the angle of every push, the pressure of every grip. When the father lifts the wheel into place and tests its spin, the boy smiles and places his hand on it, as if claiming some small part of the work as his own. They do not speak of pride. They do not need to. In a garden behind a quiet home, a young woman kneels among rows of herbs, her hands deep in the soil. She is not planting. She is searching. Her fingers move gently between roots, lifting the soft earth to find what she buried long ago. Objects wrapped in cloth and memory. She finds one, unrolls it, and holds a piece of carved wood in her palm. Small figure worn smooth by years underground. She presses it to her chest, then reburies it in a new place, whispering something to the earth before standing and dusting her hands. Her garden is more than food. It is a map of feeling, of grief, of hope, shaped and reshaped with every season. In the quiet study rooms of the scholarly quarter, scrolls are opened again. The light is now angled through the high windows, creating long bars of gold across the tiled floors. A student leans over his writing board, eyes tired but focused, copying lines from an old poem into fresh wax. He mouths the words as he writes, his lips forming their shape, even as his mind turns them over again and again, not only to understand them, but to remember how they feel. He is alone, but not lonely. In these rooms, time slows into thought. Every sound chalk against stone, a scroll unrolling. The faint rustle of cloth becomes part of a quiet music only scholars know how to hear. Farther down the slope, the baths are busy again. Men and women speak softly as they soak in warm pools, leaning against smooth marble, their faces relaxed, eyes half closed. A woman with silver threaded hair combs oil through her scalp, eyes fixed on nothing, as if gazing at something far beyond the walls. Another listens to her companion recount a dream from the night before a path through a city made of mirrors, a voice calling from every reflection. She does not laugh at the tale. She only nods and places her hand gently over her friend's. In Carthage, dreams are not dismissed. They are stories that live beside the waking ones, stitched into memory with equal thread. Near the temple of Eshmun, a small crowd gathers not for worship, but for healing. A priest leans over a man lying on a mat, his leg bandaged, his brow damp. The priest hums as he applies a fresh cloth soaked in herbs and water. He does not hurry. Pain is not an inconvenience. It is a guest to be received with care. Round him, other patients wait quietly, some with wounds, others with sorrow too deep to name. The temple accepts both. No questions are asked. It's only names, only touch, only time. The air carries the scent of crushed lavender and honey. The wind passes through slowly, as if it too has learned to wait. Along the rooftops, children begin to play again. They chase one another around chimneys, leap across narrow gaps, laugh from behind terracotta pots. A boy holds a small wooden ship, its sail made from a scrap of linen. He lowers it onto a shallow basin of water and watches it float in circles, whispering a command to imaginary waves. His sister claps once, then crouches beside him, adding a pebble to the boat as cargo. Together, they guide it back and forth, lost in a world that belongs only to them. Their joy is not loud. It is full. As the afternoon stretches long, shadows begin to return. The light softens again, not dimming, but deepening. The color of the walls shifts slightly, becoming warmer, richer, almost like the skin of fruit left to ripen. People begin to think of evening. Of lanterns to be lit, meals to be shared, stories to be told beneath the first stars. But no one moves quickly. There is no rush to finish. City allows time to complete itself. In a small house near the eastern gate, a woman prepares a bowl of dates and cheese. She places it on a table beside a folded cloth and a clay cup filled with sweet wine. Then she sits and looks out the window, watching the sky turn a shade deeper. Her face is quiet, but her posture is full of waiting. Not sadness, not worry, just presence. The wind lifts the edge of her curtain. She does not move to fix it. She lets it flutter, the soft sound filling the room with the music of the hour. Far above, on the highest hill, the temple bells begin to ring one tone, then another, low and slow. It is not a call to gather. It is a signal that the day is tilting again, that light is fading, that the rhythm is changing once more. The city does not answer with noise, but with calm. The people hear the bells and begin to return, not out of fear, not out of duty, but out of understanding. It is time. Time to return home. Time to close what was opened. Time to rest what was in motion. And in that gentle closing, in that slow folding of the day's final hours, Carthage prepares once more to return to stillness, not to sleep just yet, but to the quiet that always comes before. Before evening, before darkness, before the stars appear again. And in this pause, the city is not waiting. It is remembering what it means to exist in harmony with the sun, with breath, with one another. It is not a pause in time, it is time itself. Evening begins to form at the edges of Carthage, not as a sudden curtain, but as a gentle breath exhaled across the rooftops. The light, once golden and full, now folds into something softer. The sky deepens to a delicate rose, and then leans into violet. Shadows stretch again, slowly reclaiming the spaces they left in morning. Windows begin to glow with firelight. Lanterns are lifted and lit. The day does not end. It loosens. It releases its grip. In the western hills, where the sun melts into the horizon, the olive trees catch the last flickers of light on their silver leaves. Farmers walk the stone paths back, toward the city with slow, steady steps. They carry baskets, tools, and quiet. The air smells of earth, of dust, of work finished without complaint. A father and daughter walk side by side, their shadows long in front of them. She tells him about a snake she saw near the vines. He listens without alarm, nodding. The world to him is full of such encounters. He has always trusted the land to give and take without cruelty. As they approach the city gates, the guards open them without question. The girl waves at one of them. He waves back. There is no fear here, only rhythm. On the rooftops, musicians tune their instruments, not for performance, not for spectacle, but because this is the hour for music. A flute begins, a soft, trembling note carried on the air like thread pulled through cloth. A second joins, then a drum. Then a stringed instrument played with fingers, not seeking applause, but resonance. The sound does not compete with the voices in the streets, flows beneath them, like water beneath stone. In the lower districts, the baths begin to empty. People step out into the cooling air with towels around their shoulders, their skin warm, their eyes softened. Some carry oil jars, others carry silence. It is a time when voices drift lower, when greetings are offered with hands over hearts, when the world turns inward. In a house near the seawall, a woman kneels to light the oil lamp beside her family's small shrine. She arranges a few grapes, a slice of bread, a small pinch of salt in a dish, and places it before the image of Tanette. She does not speak. She closes her eyes for a breath, then stands and returns to the kitchen to prepare the evening meal. Her children are already seated at the table, their hands clean, their voices low. In the harbor, the last boats return. The sails are furled, the ropes are coiled. Nets are laid out across the dock to dry in the last of the sun. A fisherman climbs from his boat, lifts his son in one arm, and hands him a small shell. The boy clutches it as if it were gold. This is his treasure, and he will keep it in a pouch beside his sleeping mat. The fisherman does not speak of it again. He knows his son will remember. In the scholars' quarter, scrolls are returned to their shelves. Clay tablets are stacked. The doors of the libraries are shut and bolted. The candles are extinguished. Outside, a student stands watching the sky, repeating a line from an old poem over and over to himself until it becomes part of his breath. He will not write it down. He will carry it. In the streets, the vendors offer their final wares for the day. Small skewers of grilled fish, roasted chickpeas in paper cones, honeyed cakes wrapped in leaves. People buy them with soft thanks. They eat as they walk, their sandals brushing over the stone. The conversations now are about home, about dreams, about tomorrow's sun. Above, the sky becomes a rich blue. The first star appears, and a child points to it. Others look up. No one says its name, but everyone sees it. Everyone understands. It is time. The gates to the temple grounds close slowly. The bells do not ring. There is no need. The silence is louder now, more present. It spreads like a gentle wave over the rooftops, slipping between shutters, curling into alleys, settling into corners. In one home, a man finishes carving a piece of wood by lamplight. It is not for sale. It is a small animal shaped from memory. He places it beside the others on a shelf, a quiet menagerie of moments preserved not for others, but for himself. Each figure is part of a story he no longer tells aloud. Each one carries a part of his life. And when he is gone, someone will hold one of them and ask who made it. That will be enough. Along the outer walls, the guards begin their shift. They walk with slow, confident strides, their torches held high. But tonight, the air carries no danger. The hills are quiet. The stars above are clear. Their footsteps sound like echoes of ancient memory, not warnings. They pass one another with nods. They look out into the dark and see only peace. In the hills, a shepherd lies beneath his blanket, eyes open, watching the sky. He names the constellations silently, as his father taught him, each one like a prayer. The wind brushes through the grasses, and his animals sleep nearby. He has no fear of the night. He understands its language. He feels its calm press against his skin like warm wool. Back in the city, lamps are extinguished one by one. The music on the rooftops fades, doors close with soft clicks. In one last home, a boy lies on his back staring at the ceiling, whispering a story to himself. about a sea monster and a brave girl who sailed across the world. His voice becomes slower with each sentence. The story never ends. His breath evens. His eyes close. Carthage is quiet again. But this silence is not the same as before. It is the silence of completion, of breath exhaled after a full day, of lives lived well in small, meaningful patterns. City has moved, has spoken, has shared itself with the sun, and now offers itself to the stars. The moon rises, casting silver over the Carthage and the hills. The ships rest. The palms are still. The water reflects a sky made entirely of memory, and Carthage sleeps again not as a place frozen in time, but as something alive, eternal, and whole, not forgotten, never gone, only resting, ready to rise again. The night in Carthage has now deepened into its quietest hour. The stars above shimmer in their fixed places, each one a silent observer of everything below. They have watched this city for generations, have witnessed storms, festivals, grief, joy, and now this, the slow, deep breath of sleep. The rooftops are still. The wind has softened to little more than a suggestion. In the alleyways, even the shadows sleep. A cat sits curled beneath a wooden bench, one eye half open, its ear twitching toward every distant creak. But there is no threat, only time. The city holds itself now, completely, in memory and rest. One of the oldest homes near the edge of the hillside, a man lies awake on his mat. Not from worry, not from pain, but from thought. His eyes trace the lines of the ceiling above him, familiar and unchanged for decades. He remembers how he first came to this house as a young man, how he carved the doors himself, how the stones of the hearth were set one at a time, with hands now long gone. The faces of those no longer here pass gently through his mind, not as ghosts, but as companions. He does not fear age. He does not fear night. He lies with it, the way one lies beneath a blanket woven by a mother's hand. He knows the weight of life, and he carries it with peace. Elsewhere in the city, a midwife walks slowly along a narrow street, her satchel heavy with cloths and herbs, her steps deliberate. A new life has entered the world tonight in a modest home by the inner gardens. The child's first breath came just as the last bells of the evening faded into silence. No cries echoed. The baby opened its eyes in a room already quiet, already waiting. The mother sleeps now, her body wrapped in linen, her brow cooled with mint water. The father sits nearby, holding the child close to his chest, rocking gently, whispering promises into the dark. The midwife does not speak of it as miracle or mystery. She has seen it too many times. But each time it happens, something in her is rebuilt, softly and without sound. She walks home alone beneath the stars, the city asleep around her, and feels the weight of something larger than herself settle quietly beside her like a warm shadow. The temple grounds are empty now, but the altars still glow faintly with the last light of the candles. A thin curl of smoke lingers above a dish of burning cedar. Offerings from earlier in the day remain where they were placed. Folded cloth, dried flowers, a small clay toy left by a child. No one will remove them until morning. The gods, like the people, must be allowed to rest with what was given. In the library, one room remains lit. A scholar, too immersed in his work to notice the time, turns a scroll slowly beneath his hand, mouthing each line with care. The ink is centuries old, the language half lost, the meaning not entirely clear. But he reads anyway, not to solve, not to master, but to feel closer to those who came before. He believes that understanding is not always an answer. Sometimes it is just the shape of a question that you carry gently until it fades into something else. He finally sets the scroll aside, closes his eyes for a long moment, and breathes. Around him, the shelves creak in the cool air. The wisdom of thousands rests silently behind him. Below in the narrow quarters, a group of slaves huddles together in sleep. Their mats are close, their bodies turned inward. One whispers in his dream, another shifts slightly, drawing his blanket higher. They are not forgotten. In this city, their hands have touched everything. The walls, the grain, the ships, the clay, the olive trees. They do not speak of legacy, but it lives in them. And in their silence, Carthage speaks back. In the home of a merchant, a woman rises quietly from bed and steps into her garden. She says nothing. She simply sits beneath a fig tree, barefoot, her robe drawn tight. She looks at the moon, now higher in the sky, casting silver light across the leaves and the tiled floor. Her thoughts are not words, they're shapes, images. The sound of her mother's voice. The scent of her husband's neck when he returned from the sea. The day her youngest daughter ran through this same garden chasing a butterfly that never landed. The fig tree has grown tall since then. She reaches up to touch one of its low branches. She does not cry. She does not smile. She simply remembers. Far beyond the walls, in the vast quiet of the fields, the shepherd still lies awake. The stars above him seem to move slowly now, shifting their ancient paths across the heavens. He names them again in his mind, not because he forgets, but because saying them makes them real. The same names his father knew. The same ones his grandfather sang. He hears the soft breath of the goats around him, the whisper of dry grass brushing his sandals, and the distant thump of his own heart in his chest. These things are enough. This is all he has ever needed to know. Back in the harbor, the boats rest. The water lies flat, a mirror stretching toward the horizon. The moon glides across it like a god watching himself walk. The ships sway gently, ropes creaking with the rhythm of memory. A sailor, too restless to sleep, walks along the dock with bare feet. He crouches at the edge and dips his hand into the water. It is colder than he expected, stays like that for a long time, staring into the dark below, thinking not of where he has been, but of where he has not yet gone. He does not fear it. The sea is not an enemy. It is a question he has not yet answered. And tonight, he feels no urgency to do so. He simply listens. Throughout Carthage, time continues, but not in motion. In presence, the city does not sleep like other cities. It does not fall away. It leans into the silence. It allows its weight to settle without breaking the shape of the world. From the highest terrace to the lowest courtyard, from the market square to the temple gate, Carthage breathes, not with ambition, not with sorrow, but with balance, with memory, with stillness. This is a city that knows how to rest, not as a pause, but as a cycle, not as an ending, but as renewal. And so the stars remain. The moon keeps watch. The people dream, the gods are silent, the sea is calm, and Carthage, as always, is whole. Carthage does not stir. It hums low like a distant string plucked once and left to vibrate across silence. The city is in its most sacred state, not active, not asleep, but still. In the lower temple grounds, the last flame gutters in its dish. A priest passes through the colonnade, barefoot, his hands clasped, not in prayer, but in peace. He is old, his beard white, his eyes tired but clear. He has walked this same path every night for many years, speaking no words, asking for nothing. He lights no incense, kneels before no altar. He walks to remember, to remind the stone that someone is still listening. The city is not alone in its silence. When he reaches the farthest pillar, he turns, places one hand on the cool surface, and breathes deeply before returning the way he came. The silence recedes. The rhythm returns. The cycle turns. The city breathes in. The day begins.